trapped on a planet waiting for dawn, stuck with an alien full of nothing but brawn. But Trip and his new friend see the coming sun, so they better get out, or they won't have any more fun. I'm Josh.
I'm Justin.
And this is From There to Here. All right, this episode is Season 2, Episode 13. It's called Dawn, and according to the IMDb, this is what it's about. Trip's shuttle pod is shot down by a hostile race and is forced to land on a deserted moon. There, he must team up with the alien who shot him down in order to find a way back to Enterprise. And on the IMDb, this is rated a 7.3 out of 10.
All right.
What do you have?
This was the third episode directed by Roxanne Dawson, who, of course, played B'Elanna Torres.
She did?
She did. She praised guest star Greg Henry and felt the antagonistic relationship between his character and Connor Trinneer worked beautifully. She personally found Tucker to be one of the most interesting characters on the show because he is so accessible and his reactions feel real. The episode was written by John Scheiben, who had come to Enterprise from The X-Files, and earlier in Season 2 wrote the episode Minefield, also directed by Dawson. Producer Rick Berman described the episode...
No one knows what we're doing when we say that. Okay.
Described the episode as being like Enemy Mine and that the episode would have a lot of action and suspense.
I felt a lot of action and suspense, didn't you?
Well,
I think so.
I don't know about suspense, but there was some action in there.
Well, I mean, you weren't scared that they were going to die when the sun came up?
No.
So what do you think? Do you think this is a good episode? Do you think 7.3 is a fair rating?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate. It's well done, but of course it is an homage. It is kind of a blatant copy.
It's kind of like we were just saying prior to recording. It's like a, what did you call it? You put Enemy Mine and you put Darmok in a blender. You hit puree and you get this.
Now, I remember reading because I'm a nerd, reading the
really?
the Deep Space Nine companion, and every episode was followed by a little blurb talking about the production or what inspired the episode.
I love that book.
All right,
It's before the internet. You can find out
there's
anything.
so much good stuff in there.
Yeah,
and in the episode, is it the Magnificent Ferengi? That's what it's called.
Well, there is one called that. I'm not sure.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Okay.
It's when they get together to go rescue Moogie, right?
Yeah.
Well, that was a reference to the Magnificent Seven,
which was
a Western.
Well, which was a on the Seven Samurai. It was a riff on the Seven Samurai.
Yeah. But I think the trick in doing an homage is that it doesn't feel literally like exactly the same thing. It references it, but does its own story. And I feel, even though I don't know what it is, but the Magnificent Ferengi never felt like I was watching a lesser version of a movie. It felt like its own thing based on to give you that flavor, to give you that feel. And there was many references in that Deep Space Nine book where they say, we wanted to do this movie, but on Deep Space Nine. And they did it. But they did it in a way that you don't feel like they're just copying it outright. I remember when, just for fun, editing wise, I edited together a couple trailers because I wanted to see how they would look. And I did some research on it, like what makes a good trailer, and all that. And one of the things...
you need more than just boobs?
Well, one of the things I came across said, find a really good trailer. Do your best to try and cut your material to that. And the idea was, and they said this, there's no way you're going to get it exactly like that. And by the time you're done, you will have used that as a reference, but it will really feel nothing like the one you were originally emulating because your material's not the same and you just found something that you liked. You end up going for the rhythm rather than the literal shot for shot stuff. And I actually found that to be true. I started that way and it started coming together, but then it took on its own life. And I was like, I feel it. I'm going. And so this episode, unfortunately, is such a blatant Enemy Mine. And that's not to say that Enemy Mine was the first to ever do that.
Oh, no, that's a well-worn
absolutely.
story.
However, when we think of that premise, an alien and a human trapped on a planet,
yes,
everyone goes to Enemy Mine.
Well, nerds like you and me. That's what we go to.
Find everything. Anyone who knows sci-fi would watch this episode and say, enemy mine. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells me you did not shake it up enough.
Well, okay.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's a bad episode, but if you're going to reference something that blatantly, you'd better really think of an interesting spin,
Well, do you have an interesting spin in mind?
At the moment, no. It's just a critique, if you will, just an observation.
Well, I know, before we started recording, we were talking about writer's room stuff, and we'd mentioned that we would change the end where instead of having him talk, we wouldn't have him talk, but that wasn't exactly your suggestion. What
I was saying was, so that's how it played in the episode, that at the very end, after everything's been resolved, they're back safely on Enterprise, and the Universal Translator is now there. And they don't say a lot, but they do converse. And the alien says something. He says, Trip, when I fired on you before, I wish I hadn't done that. Basically, I'm sorry. And then they go their ways. As that scene played, I really, really thought, because he says, Trip says earlier in the episode, when we get back up there, we'll have the Universal Translator. We'll be able to talk to each other. And so to me, it would have been really cool to have Trip walk in there and say, hey, Doc, can you ask him this? And Jock says, the UT's working. Why don't you tell him yourself? Just like he did in the episode. Mm-hmm. And then have Trip turn to him, about to talk, like literally opening his mouth going, and then just put his hand up.
Oh.
And have the alien do that, nod their head, and as men do. And that's it. It's understood. Walk away.
Oh, you know what? It should have been a callback.
Yeah.
That handshake should have been a callback to something that happened earlier in the episode when they first decided to work together. Trip is the one who extends his hand first to the alien.
Fine.
And then they shake hands, and then so they repeat it again.
Yeah.
That does work better. I like that.
That's it. Walk away.
Didn't we have something else, another writer's room incident where we used a handshake to button things up? This feels familiar to me, doesn't it? No?
I don't remember what it was. If we have any fans who remember, let us know.
Someone who's taking notes on our podcast episodes.
On all the wonderful writer's room ideas that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't remember.
Something about it feels a little familiar.
I could be wrong, but my instinct says that it had something to do with the episode Detained. That all we needed was that's it, move on, don't say too much.
That's not ringing any bells. But
well, I could be wrong, man. That's just what my instinct went to from some reason.
The notes that you had read praised Connor Trinier.
Yeah.
What do you think? I think you did a good job.
Oh, yeah, I think you did. And there was a scene where he was topless and he got knocked over the head, and just the way he went down, if you were to freeze frame it there from the top of the head, he looked like Scott Bakula, like it could have been Bakula. And for a moment, I flashed to myself. I said, wait a minute. Bakula's the star of the show. Like, Darmok was with Picard. Why didn't they have him? And I thought about it for all of like a minute. And I realized, no, it needs to be Trip.
Why?
Because, or Malcolm. Either one would have, or even Travis. But not the captain in this case, because the captain is a trained diplomat. This needs to be two guys that are not diplomats figuring it out. And Archer is kind of too good at that. Just like he wins over the alien captain. Mm-hmm. And at the end, T'Pol says, hey, you did this in one day. We couldn't do it in, a decade or 100 years, whatever.
Yeah.
And that just tells you Archer's good at that. He can be. Trip with his petulance, has proven that is a difficult thing for him.
I'm going to argue with you, though. Trained diplomat? Is he really? That's Picard.
Yeah. Okay. Archer is definitely more skilled in diplomatics than Trip is.
Well,
and Trip, in this case, this was all about an engineering problem. They needed to fix something to get out. And that's a Trip thing.
Well, and it feels like this is a story of two grunts. It's not two captains.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I really think this did need to be Trip. Or it could have been one of those other guys.
Yeah.
Not the captain.
There was an old made-for-TV movie going back to the 90s. It was like made for Showtime.
Oh, so old.
Yes, I know. It was made for Showtime, I think. Mm-hmm. I think it starred Elias Koteas.
Okay.
and it took place during the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, and he was an American soldier, and he got trapped with an Iraqi soldier, and
Gosh, have I seen this?
it was a long time ago.
Okay.
But it was that same premise.
Uh-huh.
And I couldn't for the life of me tell you if it was any good or not. Something tells me we didn't like it because
We can't remember.
it's fragmented. Like, so I'm guessing it wasn't like very good. But the premise was solid considering when it was made, and
Right.
Anyway, but just that goes to show you that this story is, enemy soldiers being pitted together. This happens frequently.
Yeah.
What will they do? Will they be able to put aside their differences to be able to survive? Of course, at first they want to kill each other. Trip is far more. Usually, it's the good guy to us is always the one that's more trusting at first. And,
Of course.
of course,
I thought about that.
Takes advantage of it. And
I thought about that as it played, and I thought, man, they really need to twist that somehow. Darmok did that.
Well, Darmok did. Yeah, that's.
But
right.
of course, that was his whole plan, so that was completely different. But that's, I think, the only time you ever see the alien give up the first thing of trust. It's always the human. Always got to be the human.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, TNG, of course. Geordi with Bacharach.
Exactly.
What's that? Oh, come on. What's the episode called?
The Defector.
That's not the Defector.
No, I'm sorry. It's the season 3 episode.
No, why can't I remember episode titles when I'm doing this? My mind goes blank.
It's like a soldier or something like that.
Is it The Enemy?
The Enemy. Yes.
Is it called The Enemy?
Yes, The Enemy.
Okay.
Yes.
On Golden Coal.
Golden Call. Commander Reich.
Yes. We found another pilot from your one-man ship. Anyway.
Is he alive?
It's just like that. And you're right. Geordi is the guy that gives his trust first.
Yeah.
He's the one that says we have to, Anyway, but then, of course, the alien turns out to has a heart of gold underneath that rough exterior. And that's the same. It was the same in Enemy Mine,
I do love in that episode, The Enemy, where Geordi's talking about his eyes, and he's like, "What is that thing you're wearing?" "Oh, it's this thing. It helps me see and all that." "Your parents let you live?"
What kind of question is that? Of course they let me live.
"You tell me that wouldn't have Romulus?" "No, they'd kill you at birth with a defect like that, you freak." It's great.
Yeah. Oh, that guy was in the Masterpiece Society, right?
Yeah, that guy had a quality. I wish we saw more of him. I know I've caught him in one or two other things, and he will always be Centurion Bakra and the Masterpiece Society guy. If you recall, you and I being huge fans of The Day the Earth Stood Still, back in the 90s, we said if they were to make it right now, that guy could play Klaatu.
Oh, yeah.
He just has this otherworldly quality to
Yeah.
him, just like Michael Rene had. And we're just like, God, that's it. But you know what? We are way off track.
Well, they went with Keanu.
Oh, yeah. Good choice.
See how well
guys.
that turned out.
Whoa, I'm an alien.
Whoa, man. Gort, Klaatu Barata, Nikto, man.
Like, fire your laser, man.
You humans are way too dangerous, man. We got to blow you up.
Bogus.
Bogus, man.
Shot me. Anyway. So, this is just one of those episodes that it's fine, really.
No, it's good. It's not great.
Like I said, the only problem is that it's riffing something so obviously that you cannot help but compare it. If you change it up enough, then you go, oh, it's kind of like Enemy Mine, but you move on. But that is always on your mind as you're watching this.
If anything, I would say what saved it from being generic was Connor Trinneer and the other actor. It's their episode, and the other actor barely speaks, and when he does, it's blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And so he had to convey a lot of emotion without words. And
okay.
his intentions without words as well. What?
So I do have an idea. I think you said this at the top. How would I have done it differently? Right? How would I have changed it up? And I think what we were talking about, flip it. Have it be where, because at the start of the episode, Trip is just flying along, minding his own business, and this guy flies in and shoots at him. We don't know why, because they can't speak the same language.
Right.
So have it be where wherever they are, Trip sees this guy and whatever situation happens, Trip thinks it's provocative. So Trip shoots at him. They go down, they hit the planet. So as far as this alien's concerned, this freaking guy came and shot at him. And this episode, for example, has the moment where Trip cuts his arm and the guy spits on it and it's like this healing solution.
Yeah, they don't really explain that.
No, they don't. But
it's a nice
the
treat.
point is why not have it be the other way around? Play it like this was Star Trek Alien. And in other words, it's from this guy's perspective.
Okay.
And this guy experiences humanity through the alien eyes, and we experience humanity through his eyes. Like, who is this guy? In fact, you know what? Holy crap, this is how you do it. Okay. Listen, so
okay,
you have the guy on his ship or something, whatever, in the beginning, talking to his pals. We know what they're talking about. I don't know who this guy is. He's shooting at me. I don't know what's going on. We're going down. And then when he gets down on the planet and he goes to talk to Trip, all we hear, because this episode is from his perspective. When Trip talks, we don't hear English. We hear what, because that's what it's going to mean to him. It's going to mean gibberish. And have it be like that, where we only understand the alien. And we see Trip going, what. We know from his gesture he probably means water, but we're guessing just like this guy. Wouldn't that have been an interesting way to tell this?
It would have been. They never would have done that though.
That would have been so interesting.
Could have been.
But
they don't do perspective shifts like that in Star Trek.
That's a shame they don't.
No.
There was that one episode of Deep Space Nine where Worf and Jadzia spend the whole episode on a Klingon ship, and it's the one about Worf's son being a Jonah on the ship and all of that.
Yeah.
And Ira Stephen Bear, the producer, said, I want to do a whole episode of Star Trek Klingon, start to finish. It's a Klingon episode. So that was the closest you ever got to that. But yeah, it's a shame because that would have been so interesting. So interesting. And to show how confusing it is, when someone's not speaking your language. Mm-hmm. We always know what Trip is saying.
Yeah,
so
which is another problem I had, because whenever they get into a situation where you have two people that don't understand each other, maybe it would happen like this in real life. They always start to speak in such
Trip
exaggerated terms.
Yeah.
And even though the other guy can understand what you're saying, I need to take this transmitter up there. Me up there. He can't understand you. You
see it in real life too. When people talk to someone that doesn't speak English, they go, I am your friend. Like saying it louder makes it sound
it's like you just want you want. Sometimes they'll call out that cliche in movies. It's like, I'm not deaf. I can hear you. I just can't understand you.
I know.
It's like, what are you doing? It's like, come on.
Yeah.
So I wish they wouldn't have done that, but they did.
Yes. They need it easily spelled out for the audience, but
sure,
make it different for the audience. That's my input, is do that.
Yeah, I suppose. I wish they would have given us a little bit more in terms of setting. They were on this.
You could even
planet or moon, whatever it was,
and
it was practically one set the whole time.
Yeah, sure.
I would have liked some variety in there a little bit. It was a little
get out of the soundstage.
Yes,
head out to the Mojave Desert and shoot that thing.
Painfully obvious they were on set.
Walk up the rocks at the back of Mojave and do it. Go to Vasquez Rocks, for God's sake.
Yeah, why didn't they go to Vasquez Rocks?
I don't know.
They could have run up the Gorn Rocks. Why didn't they do that?
Yeah, come on, have fun with it. Could you imagine if the episode was played out, like I said, where we understand the alien but not Trip? And then we have that same scene in sickbay where Trip comes in and he just looks at him and puts his hand out, and the alien captain goes, you are one ugly man, but I love you. And Trip could go, bang, blue, blue, thank you. And, whatever. He has no idea. He thinks it's a compliment. Sure. You're a good guy, but God, you're ugly. Whatever. Just something as a little, they really have no idea what they're saying.
No, that could have been fun.
That would have been fun too.
Sure.
I wish Star Trek would have taken more chances.
Well, I think we've said that a lot about.
Yeah, but I mean,
about Enterprise in particular.
Yeah, it's really Enterprise, because DS9 did take chances.
Yeah, they did.
Plenty of them.
Sure.
Enterprise is really, even Voyager took chances. I would argue that they did stuff in there from
Voyager.
Well, a little bit.
Where? When? How? You now have to explain this to me.
All right, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Okay, that was too broad of a comment. I take it back.
Okay.
I think Voyager was willing to, whether they intended it or not, was willing to let Janeway oftentimes be kind of unlikable. And they were willing to let, well, I guess that was more of a writing thing that they let Chakotay be a clown. But I don't know. I felt like there was some chances in there. And I will say Voyager did action pretty well. You know, that they had a lot of good action stuff in there. It was always a lot of fun when they did that. Enterprise, though, to me, in comparison, their action's a little more stilted. Something about the whole dang show is just so stilted.
It is. Oh,
I feel like.
Well,
yeah.
Well, I think we had said this last week, was that you had taken a scene from the show and you altered its contrast, its brightness.
I did.
On your computer, and it made it look a lot better.
It looked more TNG-ish.
Well, I think that just goes to show you, everyone else, that, you know, they were. It seems like they were deliberately trying to make things bland.
It feels like it, because even no matter what people want to say about Voyager being TNG light and all that, Tom Paris is an interesting character.
Yeah, well, Tom Paris isn't the star of the show.
No, I'm just saying, though, so is Harry. Their relationship becomes interesting.
Sure.
That show was a lot of things, but it never felt flat. It just didn't. This show so often feels flat. This feels like...
I would have liked to have seen just a show with about Harry and Tom.
Oh, me too. I think they did a great job
living together and going on adventures.
two partners in crime.
I would have loved to have seen a show about Jake and Nog.
Yes, I would have. And I feel like the acting in this show is...
Are we back to Enterprise now?
Yeah. Is people that were familiar with Star Trek, but not so much so. And so when they got in front of the camera, they thought, oh, well, this is how people in the future must act and all that. And they all came off as bland. You know, it's like, whether that was an intentional acting choice or if it was something directed down from the top, I don't know. But there's just so little personality in this.
I think there must have been something going on with UPN at the time.
Maybe.
Like, I think we had discussed that UPN shows of that era had a similar look.
Sure.
So they must have had a similar production edicts. Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, I was even thinking about Bakula, and I thought, you know, I've seen Bakula in other things.
Yeah.
He's better than this.
He is.
You know, his acting in this, it's like
it's like they're suffocating him almost.
That's exactly what it feels like. It feels like he's been told, don't go above 7. So he has to constantly rein it in. I mean, we all know. We've all seen Quantum Leap. We know he can do passionate and all of that, and it's so believable. Yet somehow in this, not the same. He's lost that edge. But that's universal. You know, everyone, I feel like, was told to dial it down. Just like with the score. Don't make it too interesting now, you know. And I feel like the whole show suffers from it. Until you start getting into season 3, even though I don't like bow at the altar of when season 3 finally got into some action and all that stuff. At least then things started to come to life a little bit. But even in that, I feel like Bakula's acting was filtered, you know?
Oh, I agree. Absolutely.
And unfortunately, what these guys lack is exactly what the show was built on, which is the idea that these are guys that wear ball caps, but they don't act like that. And that's unfortunate. I'm not saying they should act unprofessional. I'm just saying they should have felt a little more like us in a uniform on a ship, you know, and a little more realistic, a little more modern day language or something like that.
No, they had that notion, and they threw in some set dressing of it. Like, oh yeah, we'll wear the ball caps, but they don't have the attitude of it.
No,
it's just
they don't.
Just the cap. Oh well, okay. You don't have the spirit.
They basically act like TNG characters in a prequel, which is too stilted, and that doesn't work. They bump up against that all the time.
Okay,
you know, unfortunately.
Well, okay. Let's go back to Dawn here for a second. What do you think this does for Trip in his growth as a character?
I think it's another step for him to show that he's growing, he's maturing, and he's learning from his mistakes.
How's his petulance level in this one?
I think it's pretty good, and
as in pretty tempered.
Yeah,
okay.
But yet it still feels believable that he would do what he did. I think he's gone through a season and a half of these kinds of situations, and clearly has demonstrated the learning from it in a way that I, as a viewer, find believable.
How do you think this? How do you think this came up in their writers' room, where we just had an episode where Trip was the lead, and where he was stuck on an alien planet, but he's the lead. Usually, characters don't get their own episode that close
right
to
next
each other.
to each other.
No,
Yeah.
that's strange.
I noticed that too, and I don't know. I think it was just a fluke. Honestly,
Think so?
Yeah, I really do. I think it was just an absolute fluke.
Maybe they just really liked Connor Trinneer.
I think like what Roxanne Dawson said is probably the reason why, is that his performance kind of shines through some of the blandness. So if you're going to put one of those characters in a ship with an alien princess who's being a shrew, you're going to put Trip.
Well, you know what? I think what it is, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but we were saying how it doesn't have that spirit of them, being actually more like just guys from now in the future. Maybe Trip's character, Connor Trinneer, the way he played him, did have that spirit a bit more than everyone else. Maybe that's why they were gravitating to him.
That's what I think. I think he somehow shined through the blandness.
Okay.
So when they want to put a character in these situations, he's just naturally the one you want to go for.
Yeah, because he feels more like a real person.
Although that said, I do think this episode would have done well also if it had been a Mayweather episode.
You think so?
I like that guy. I like the actor. He was never given his due on this show. But I think had they put him in this episode, I think he also would have shined through in a real, because he's got a quality about him where I understand he was a boomer, so he's been out in space before, but he's also young, but he's like Captain Eager, he's got a little bit of reality, but he's very newbie in a good way, not inexperienced, just fresh faced.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a cool situation to put him in. I really think that actor would have done a good job in this episode and kept it interesting, I think. And he's like ever the optimist. So I could totally believe him saying, hey, look at this gun. Whew, it's gone. No one's got it. We're all even, Like I absolutely believe his character would do that.
And I'm sure they'd love to get him without a shirt on again. They seem to enjoy doing that the first time.
That dude was ripped.
He was, probably still is.
I'm sure he is. But yeah, he was put together. I mean, I was like, dang, I wish I had that.
Yeah. Well, that's about all I had on this one.
Yeah, me too.
It's a pretty even keeled episode.
Yeah, I figured
it's enjoyable, but it's not.
It's just not different enough to warrant a whole lot of conversation.
No, it's not going to win a lot of awards or anything like that, but it's not boring.
No.
It's entertaining.
Yeah,
no.
Fair enough.
So did you have any
trivia?
Well, would you like to grade it first? I'm sorry.
I'll grade it. I'm going to give it a B+. Because it's just not original enough to get into the A territory.
Yeah, I'll give it a B.
All right.
It's fair. I think B is still above average.
Sure.
But it's a little too familiar.
Yeah,
let's just
exactly.
say that. So yeah, trivia. Did you have any trivia?
I did not. Sorry, I was trying to just into it.
I did not see you write anything down.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Okay, I do have a few things. We haven't heard yet from Marissa, so we don't have any trivia questions from her yet.
Very
so
disappointing.
Looking forward to that, Marissa.
Yeah,
Where are they?
Where are you?
Okay. In the system where I think it was the planet. I don't know if did he crash land on a planet or was it a moon?
I feel like it was a moon.
Okay, well I guess it was the nearby planet.
Endor.
No. Yavin. No. They did crash on one of the moons, but how many moons did that planet have?
94.
62 moons.
Damn.
What was the name of the captain of the alien ship?
Drax.
Wrong. It was Ketan Shah.
Okay.
What was the name of the alien species?
Drax.
I'm surprised you didn't get this. It was very similar to another name, the Arconians, which sounds like Harkonnens.
Yeah.
Okay, what was the nursery rhyme, I guess, that Trip set up on his tape recorder to trick the alien?
Was, not Little Miss Muffet or something.
No, it wasn't Little Miss Muffet sat on the tuffet. No.
I forget.
It's Mary Had a Little Lamb.
Right. Her fleece was white as snow. Yeah, I remember that.
We had to hear just enough of it for it to be funny.
Yeah.
And then he stops. Did you have any awards?
No.
No awards?
I don't think he was petulant.
He was not petulant. No, there was no. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say there's no Grumba awards. He was not scared.
Yeah. No Janeway award. No. There was a Shatner award for me, I think, for when they got into a fisticuffs fight. I thought that was some good Shatner punching.
All right.
I like that.
All right.
Yeah, you dig it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. It wasn't Gordon level fighting,
No,
but it was good. In terms of favorite scene, best line, I think it was near the end when they're on the cliff face and
I know where you're going. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they're dying. Trip lays down and he starts kind of recanting all of the experiences he's had thus far in season 1 and 2. I did this. I even got pregnant. It was good. I liked it.
Yeah, he's like, I had a good run.
Yeah.
I've had done a lot of fun things.
You hear, Alien?
Yeah.
I'm a good guy.
Yeah,
I got some memories.
No, I like that. Yeah, that was cute.
Yeah, it was.
I
good.
even got pregnant once. That was a good little.
Yeah. You remember that, folks? When I got pregnant?
that made us both chuckle. That was fun. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so opening up the mailbag, although I wouldn't really call it a mailbag, but I guess we can. We did hear from a few people this week. We heard from two new people this week. From someone, William. Howdy. First time listener, love Enterprise. Glad you have this podcast. I will now add it on rotation with Warp 5 and First Flight. That's our competition.
We're better.
This episode with Trip stranded with the male alien was in season 2 called Dawn. Okay, that's last week we didn't know what it was.
Uh-huh.
Or was it the week before that? I can't remember, but yeah. Take care and keep having faith of the hearts. Thanks, William. We'll try. We'll sure as hell try.
What were the other two podcast names?
Warp 5 and First Flight.
Those are good titles for their shows.
Yeah, that's what you had said when we were trying to figure out what to call ours.
Warp 5. I like that.
You were like, oh, Warp 5, that's a good one.
I like ours too, but
Yeah.
I those are good too as well.
We also heard from Sebastian.
All right.
Sebastian hails from Germany.
All right.
Hey, Josh. Hey, Justin. Greetings from Germany. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your podcast. I hear it while jogging and before I go to bed. I'm currently at season 2, episode 6. Which one is that?
I don't remember.
Okay. And you've just asked the audience when and how we found the podcast. So here we go. I found your podcast during my current rewatch of Enterprise, and this rewatch has a special purpose. Not only do I enjoy rediscovering forgotten details in the familiar atmosphere of something I've already seen years ago, I'm also carefully rating the episodes in order to create a perfect watch list for another rewatch in a couple of years. This guy's a serious watcher.
Right.
And that rewatch will happen together with my wife. It's always good to watch with someone else.
Yeah.
Who also loves Star Trek, especially TNG, DS9, and Voyager. Long ago, she stopped watching Enterprise after some of those well-known bland, and that's in all capitals, episodes.
I wouldn't have blamed anyone for ditching the show after Rogue Planet.
Oh, yeah. So I am sure will very much enjoy a lovingly curated best of. Immersing myself in critically rewatching Enterprise was very pleasant. I wanted to go deeper, so I thought maybe I'm lucky and there's a rewatch podcast out there. So I typed in Star Trek Enterprise into the podcast section of my Spotify app and found From There to Here as the first result. Isn't that awesome? We
All
showed
right.
up first.
As it should be.
I was even more excited when I saw that this podcast is not something like 10 years old, but happening right now. It is indeed happening right now. Live. There are many aspects I totally share with you and some things I see completely differently. I wonder what that is. I don't know.
Tell us.
We'd like to know. Listening to the podcast feels like sitting at the table with two friends who have the same deep interest in that specific topic.
Which is ironic, given that you and I hate each other and we don't watch any of the same
Yes,
stuff.
we do. I don't like you at all. I mean, this is the only time we ever talk is when we do this. I remember how I had to laugh out loud when you first came up with the awards, like the V'ger Award for Unexpected Plot Twist. And that was Justin's idea, by the way.
My favorite one is the Soapy Chicote.
The Soapy Chicote? Was that like a mix of both of us?
I think so. I think we found it together.
I've also thought about a Michael Dorn Award for tacitly accepting to have one's proposals rejected.
Yeah.
I like to add that to the pantheon of awards.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Sebastian. We will add that.
The Worf Award.
The Worf Award
For being ignored.
For being ignored. for having your proposals rejected.
Of course, you could say that about Chicote too, but we already have the Soapy Chicote.
That's true. Yeah, we already have one named after Chicote, so...
Worf is kind of comically known for being disregarded.
He is known for that, yeah. On the other hand, I really dislike the trope of the female, quote, sexy alien of the week, who, of course, will have to kiss the male protagonist sooner or later. I told him I like the sexy alien of the week, so I don't mind seeing the sexy alien. I think it kind of ruins the episode because it really feels forced and hollow. And then he puts in parentheses, broken bow, rogue planet, 2 days and 2 nights, civilization, ghost ship.
I agree.
He's got a point there.
Yeah, sure.
However, there are exceptions. DS9's Second Sight, for example, where Cisco fell in love with Fenna, who which was so convincing and intense! Exclamation point. I don't remember that episode well enough to know.
I remember it.
What she looks like. What was she all about? Well, I'm guessing she must be. Having spent so many hours listening to your voices, I can't believe somebody would do that.
I'm
with
sorry.
us. I was like, who is listening to us for hours? I'm sorry, Sebastian. I hope you don't have nightmares. I was wondering, is this your first podcast? You know, full disclosure, I've already answered, Sebastian. No, it isn't. Would you like to tell people what else we've done?
Oh, well, gosh, I mean, we have our sort of more amateur attempts earlier on. But
yes,
then
because we're professionals now.
You know what I mean. But when we really started to get into the swing of things, we started a show called Listcast, which was a top five girlfriends from movies, top 5 action scenes, things like that. And then we did a
commentary
podcast where we would record our own commentaries in time with a movie.
Which is, I mean, all of those podcasts are still available.
Yeah, they're out there. You can find them on iTunes.
We'll occasionally still add a commentary to
once in a while
to that. Yeah. I think we have almost
Listcast. We had stopped quite some time ago.
Yeah, I think we have almost 50 episodes of Listcast.
Yeah,
and
50 of Listcast.
Maybe about 90 or so episodes of commentaries.
That sounds about right. And our previous efforts are more of the same. They're variations on a theme. They're all movie related. And
yeah,
things like
more or
that.
less.
So,
yeah. And I think.
We should Listcast being the one show,
right?
And Soulless Minions of Orthodoxy.
Oh, right. We didn't
being
get
the title of our commentary.
And you guys get the
Obviously
reference,
get
Soulless
the
Minions
reference.
of Orthodoxy? I'm betting you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you type in Listcast podcast or Soulless Minions of Orthodoxy podcast, you will find us right away.
Yeah. I also mentioned, Sebastian, I did participate in another Star Trek podcast a little bit ago, like almost 15 years ago now. It was called
The Voyager Bunch.
The Delta Quadrant.
Oh, yeah.
I only hung around for a couple of seasons, but as far as I know, it's still there, if you like to hear that. The sound quality is not too hot, though. How do you guys even know each other? Well, we told Sebastian. I don't know if we're going to tell anybody else. Unless you really want to know, you can email us and
Yes.
guess and figure it out. Did you ever plan to make a face reveal? The answer to that is no.
What audience we do have, we would like to keep.
Yeah. Sorry. I already mentioned Sebastian. No, it's not something we ever planned on doing. We're kind of just radio voice guys.
Yeah.
Video kill the radio star. That's my philosophy. Just enjoy our voices and your imagination.
Well, I'm going to plug you here. I'm going to plug you here.
Yeah.
You do have a YouTube channel.
Well, I don't want people to know what I look like, though.
But they know what you look like. They've seen you on YouTube.
Yeah, but the people who watch me on YouTube don't listen to this.
Okay, fine. Forget it.
It's totally different.
Whatever.
I want whatever they see in their mind when they see what I look like, it's going to completely ruin it.
Okay.
Just let it go.
I won't say it.
So keep up the good work and best regards, Sebastian. So thank you, Sebastian.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks a lot. That was a really detailed email, and it's a pleasure to get. Well, we also got a few comments on our YouTube channel. You can listen to this on YouTube if you want. Someone left a few comments on Precious Cargo. Kyle said he had fun with that, with Precious Cargo, and Carbon Creek. He commented on how great T'Pol was in that episode.
Yeah.
So thanks Kyle for listening to us on YouTube. That's awesome. Justin, is there anything else you'd like to add before we go?
No, I think we got it.
What do we have next?
Stigma.
Oh yeah, I think that's a good one.
The AIDS allegory one.
Well, if you'd like to write us, our email is podcastnx01@gmail.com, or you can give us a direct comment on Apple Podcasts and give us a rating.
Please do.